Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're taking a look at this really cool book about teaching kids how to read nonfiction like prose.
Oh, yeah, I know this one.
But here's the thing. It got me thinking about how we read nonfiction, even as adults.
Hmm.
Like we always just kind of assume nonfiction equals truth.
Right.
But this book makes a pretty good case that it's not that simple.
Definitely not.
And it might even be making us, less informed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, early on, it was really more about a way to categorize stuff for librarians.
Okay.
But that shift to not fake, I think that's where things get kind of messy.
Interesting.
Think about how we teach kids about Thanksgiving.
Oh,
It's all about the peaceful gathering and the food,
right.
but we kind of gloss over the whole impact of European diseases on Native Americans.
Yeah.
So is that story true? I mean, it's accurate in parts, but it's definitely missing some important context.
You're totally right. It's like a very selective truth. And that makes you wonder, right? If we're telling kids nonfiction is always true, are we setting them up to just accept anything they read without questioning it?
It's definitely a concern, especially these days with all the misinformation floating around.
It's like we need to be teaching kids to be skeptical readers from the get-go.
That's a great point. And that's why this book suggests that the way we define nonfiction should actually change as kids get older.
Interesting.
For younger kids, saying nonfiction is about real things might be enough for now.
Makes sense.
But by the time they're in high school, they need a definition that recognizes that truth can be pretty complex.
Right. Because it's not just about facts. It's about how those facts are presented and interpreted.
Exactly.
So what does the book suggest?
Well, they actually give two different definitions.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So for those early elementary kids, they suggest something like, nonfiction tells us about the world around us.
Okay. Simple and straightforward.
Right. But for high schoolers, they bump it up a notch.
Okay, lay it on me.
They say nonfiction is a body of work in which the author purports to tell us about the real world.
Okay, well, hold on. Purports. That's a pretty big word for high school.
I know, right? But it's key here.
Okay, how so?
Because it acknowledges that the author is making a claim. They're saying, this is what I believe to be true.
Gotcha.
But it's up to us as readers to evaluate that claim, not just take it at face value.
We can't just be sponges soaking it all up.
Exactly. We got to be active readers, thinking critically about what we're reading. And that actually aligns perfectly with what you mentioned about wanting to learn quickly but thoroughly.
Like, we're detectives, not just students.
Exactly.
And speaking of being more active readers,
Yeah.
this book lays out these three big questions
Oh, yeah, those are good.
that readers should ask about any nonfiction text.
Okay, what are they?
All right, so the first one is, what surprised me?
Okay.
The second one is, what did the author think I already knew?
Interesting.
And the third one is, what challenged, changed, or confirmed what I already knew?
I like that they're not just about understanding the text. It's about making connections to your own knowledge and experiences.
Right, like you're having a conversation with the author.
Exactly.
And that first question, what surprised me, it's all about sparking that curiosity,
Mhm.
noticing something new that you didn't know before.
And you mentioned wanting those aha moments in your learning.
Totally. Like, I never realized honeybees weren't native to America until I read this book.
Wow.
It was an anecdote about a fifth grade class
Yeah.
and their reaction to the Thanksgiving story.
Fascinating.
And the second question, that one's all about identifying those knowledge gaps,
Mhm.
Like, what am I missing?
Which can be humbling, but also really exciting.
Absolutely. It opens up all these new avenues for learning.
Right. And then that third question, what challenged, changed, or confirmed what I already knew? That gets to the core of how learning actually happens.
That's like our beliefs are constantly being tested and refined,
Exactly. And sometimes those beliefs get completely overturned.
which can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's how we grow.
This book actually argues that changing your mind based on new evidence isn't a weakness. It's a sign of intellectual honesty.
I love that idea. It's about being open to new information and being willing to adjust our understanding of the world.
It's like that example in the book about the middle schoolers who were reading an article about fish mislabeling in restaurants.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
The author used the word majority, but the students realized that could mean anything from like 51% to 99%.
Right. Majority doesn't really tell you that much.
Exactly. And they started questioning the statistic and the author's intention,
It's like they were doing their own little fact-checking investigation.
which is a skill we could all use a little more of these days.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got these big questions to guide us, but the book also introduces these nonfiction signposts.
Oh, I love those.
With like little flags waving in the text saying, hey, pay attention to this.
Right, and they help you understand not just the content, but also the author's craft.
So it's like a behind-the-scenes look at how nonfiction is written. The first one that really stood out to me was numbers and statistics.
Mm.
It's not just about spotting the numbers, but asking why the author chose to use them.
Right, like are they trying to persuade you or evoke a specific emotion?
Exactly.
No.
Numbers can be very powerful, so we need to be aware of how they're being used.
There's a great example in the book about a fifth grade class that was reading an article about vampire bats.
Okay.
One student noticed that the author used very specific numbers, like the exact number of bats captured and the amount of poison they used.
Interesting.
And the student realized those numbers weren't just random. They were carefully chosen to emphasize the scale of the problem.
It's like those numbers were telling a story, not just conveying information.
Exactly. And it makes you think about all the numbers we encounter every day in the news on social media.
Right. Are we questioning those numbers enough?
That's a great question to ask yourself.
Another signpost that caught my eye was extreme or absolute language.
Oh, yeah.
Those words like everyone, always, never. It's like the author's trying to shut down any debate.
Right. It's a way of saying, this is the only truth.
But as critical readers, we should always be wary of those sweeping statements.
Absolutely. There are almost always exceptions and nuances.
The book has this really powerful example of a student reading about child labor after the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
And the phrase, set me free, it seemed really extreme to the student because it implied a level of freedom that just didn't exist for those kids.
Wow, that's such a great observation.
It makes you think about the historical context and how even seemingly simple words can be really loaded.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more signpost before we move on because this one really resonated with me.
Okay, I'm curious.
It's quoted words.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward.
It does, but the book breaks it down into personal perspective and voice of authority
Oh, that's a good distinction.
because it encourages you to evaluate the source of the information.
Right, like who's saying this and why?
Is it someone with firsthand experience, an expert in the field, or someone with a vested interest in shaping the narrative?
That's so important these days. We're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
We got to be careful about who we trust.
Exactly.
And speaking of information overload, the book also tackles the very real issue of vocabulary challenges in nonfiction.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
You mentioned wanting to feel more confident tackling complex texts,
I do.
and I think this section might be really helpful for that.
Okay, tell me more.
So the book talks about how some words are more crucial to understanding than others. They call this the tier system.
Okay.
It basically means that some words are essential for basic comprehension.
Gotcha.
They call those tier 1 words.
Okay.
Then you've got tier 2 words, which are important for specific topics. And then tier 3 words, which are like highly specialized jargon.
Makes sense.
Recognizing where a word falls on that spectrum can help you decide how much effort to put into learning it.
So it's not just about looking up every word you don't know.
Right. It's about being strategic.
And it all starts with recognizing those word gaps, those moments where you're like, wait, I don't actually know what that means.
It's like being a detective in your own reading, looking for clues.
I like that.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks.
Oh, no.
The book goes even deeper, exploring specific strategies for tackling those challenging texts. And we'll be diving into those in part 2.
Okay, I'm ready for more.
So stay tuned.
No, wait.
All right, so before we jump into those fix-up strategies,
Okay.
I want to circle back to the nonfiction signposts for a sec.
Okay, sure.
They really got me thinking. Especially that one about contrasts and contradictions.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones.
It's like when something in the text just doesn't quite add up.
Right, like a little red flag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book points out that those moments are often signaled by words like but yet or however.
It's like the author is saying, hey, pay attention. This might not be what you expect.
And it's not just about spotting the mismatch, but figuring out why it matters.
Right.
Like that example in the book about the girl in Pakistan and the call to prayer broadcast over loudspeakers.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
It was so different from how loudspeakers are used in the U.S. And that contrast sparked a whole discussion about cultural differences and religious freedom.
It's like those contrasts can really open up your perspective.
Totally. And sometimes those contrasts can even reveal the author's own biases.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Like they might be presenting a certain viewpoint, but then there's this little detail that contradicts it.
It's like you get a glimpse behind the curtain and see the author's thought process at work.
I love that analogy.
Which brings me to another signpost that I found super intriguing. Extreme or absolute language.
Oh, yeah. Those sweeping statements that leave no room for nuance.
Exactly. Like everyone, always,
Like,
never.
it's like the author's trying to shut down any debate.
But as critical readers, shouldn't we be a little suspicious of those kinds of claims?
We definitely should. It's not about dismissing them outright, but asking those probing questions.
Like, is this really true?
Right. Or are there any exceptions?
And what's the author's agenda here?
Remember that example from the book about cyber terrorism?
Oh, yeah, the one where the author claimed that cyber terrorism would destroy civilization as we know it.
A little dramatic, don't you think?
Just a tad.
Yeah.
And the students in the book, they picked up on that extreme language right away.
Good for them.
They were like, is the author exaggerating here? Or are they trying to push a certain political agenda?
It's so important to be aware of those possibilities.
Especially these days when we're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
It's like we need to develop that BS detector you were talking about earlier.
Totally. We can't just accept everything we read at face value.
And this signpost in particular can really help with that.
I agree. It's about learning to read between the lines and not just taking the author's word for it.
And, this ties back to what you mentioned about wanting to gain knowledge quickly but thoroughly.
Oh, how so?
By recognizing these signposts, you can start to filter out the noise and focus on the most essential information.
It's like learning to speed read, but for critical thinking.
I like that.
Okay, I have to admit the signpost that initially seemed the most obvious to me was numbers and statistics.
Really? Why is that?
I don't know, I guess I just figured numbers are numbers, right?
Well, they are, but the book actually made me realize that I wasn't paying enough attention to how those numbers were being used.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just about spotting them, but asking why they're there.
What do you mean?
Like, what story are they telling? Are they
Yeah.
being used to persuade, inform, or maybe even mislead?
Okay, I'm starting to see what you mean.
Remember that anecdote about the 5th grade class and the vampire bat article?
Yeah, vaguely.
The author used very specific numbers, like the exact number of bats captured and the amount of poison used.
Okay.
And one student realized those numbers weren't just random, they were carefully chosen to emphasize the scale of the problem.
So it's like those numbers were doing more than just conveying information.
Exactly. They were creating an emotional impact.
It's kind of unsettling when you think about it.
It is. It makes you wonder how often we're being manipulated by numbers without even realizing it.
Like that saying, there are lies, damned lies, and statistics.
Exactly. We need to be savvy consumers of those numerical claims.
Not just blind believers.
Right.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to a signpost that's all about giving voice to others. Quoted words.
Oh, yeah. Those can be really powerful.
It seems pretty straightforward, but the book actually breaks it down into personal perspective and voice of authority.
Oh, that's an important distinction.
It is, because it encourages you to think about why the author chose to include this particular quote.
Right. Like, what does it add to the text?
Is it someone with firsthand experience, an expert in the field, or just some random person on the street?
And most importantly, is the source credible?
That's where things can get a little tricky.
For sure. Anyone can be quoted, but that doesn't mean they're a reliable source of information.
The book gave that example of an article about a natural disaster that quoted both survivors and scientists.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Each voice added a different layer of understanding to the event.
It's like you get a more well-rounded perspective.
Right. But we also need to be aware of the potential biases of the people being quoted.
Definitely. Like, do their words align with the overall message of the text? Or are they being used to cherry-pick evidence?
It's like being a juror in a trial, weighing the evidence and considering the credibility of the witnesses.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, before we move on to those fix-up strategies, I want to touch on one last signpost, and it's a bit different from the others. Word gaps.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
This one isn't something the author does, but something we as readers experience.
Right.
It's those moments when we encounter a word and we're like, I have no idea what that means.
It's like hitting a brick wall.
Totally. But the book argues that recognizing those word gaps is actually the first step towards filling them.
How so?
It's about developing that metacognitive awareness of our own vocabulary limitations.
So it's not about feeling ashamed that we don't know a word.
No, not at all. It's about being proactive about learning it.
Like being a detective in your own reading.
Exactly.
Wow.
We're investigating the language itself.
I love that idea.
And I think that's a great mindset to have as we move on to those fix-up strategies you mentioned.
Okay, let's do it.
We're not just passively reading. We're actively engaging with the text, questioning, exploring, and making it our own.
And those fix-up strategies are like tools in our detective kit.
They help us break down complex information and make even the most challenging texts more accessible and engaging.
All right, let's unpack those tools.
All right, let's talk strategy.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground with these signposts and big questions.
Yeah, we have.
But this book doesn't just leave you hanging,
Right.
It actually gives you some really practical tools. They call them fix-up strategies
Oh, yeah.
for when you get stuck, like
Mm.
when you're reading and you're just like, wait, what?
It's like having a toolkit for your brain.
Okay, so are these like cheat codes for reading?
Not exactly,
Oh,
but
man.
they definitely make the process a lot smoother and more enjoyable.
You mentioned wanting to make learning more fun.
Yeah.
I think some of these strategies really tap into that.
I think so too.
Okay, so let's start with one that sounds both fun and helpful. This one is called Possible Sentences,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
and it's all about getting your brain warmed up before you even start reading.
It's like a little pre-reading game.
Okay, how do you play?
So you take a few key words or phrases from the text,
Okay.
and you use those to create your own sentences.
Interesting.
It's a fun way to activate your prior knowledge and kind of make some predictions about what the text is going to be about.
So it's like word association, but with a purpose.
Exactly. And it can also help you spot any potential vocabulary challenges up front.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Like if you're struggling to use a certain word in a sentence, that might be a sign that you need to look it up.
Exactly. It's like checking your tools before you start building something.
Okay, that's a great tip.
Hmm.
Now, what about for those of us who are more visual learners?
Oh, the book has a great strategy for that one, too. It's called Sketch to Stretch. Sketch to Stretch. Okay.
And it's all about using visuals to help you understand and remember information.
So, like, if I'm reading a passage and I'm just not picturing it in my mind, I can just grab a pencil and sketch it out.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's just a quick doodle to help you visualize what's happening.
Wait, so you're telling me I can doodle my way to better comprehension?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like creating a mental map of the information.
I love that. It takes the pressure off of being a good artist.
Right.
Okay, this next one sounds a bit more structured. It's called Somebody Wanted, But.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
And it seems like it's all about getting to the heart of narrative.
Exactly. You're basically breaking down a story or event into its key elements.
Okay, like what?
So you think about who the main players are, what
Yeah.
they wanted, what obstacles they faced, and what the outcome was.
So it's like a little plot summary.
Exactly. And it can help you identify the main takeaway from a text.
But does it work for more complex texts too? Like ones that aren't necessarily telling a story? You can definitely adapt it. The key is to think about the characters as the key concepts or ideas,
Okay.
and the plot as the way those concepts are presented and developed throughout the text.
It's like creating a conceptual map instead of a story map.
Right.
This next strategy is giving me flashbacks to elementary school.
Oh, why is that?
It's called genre reformulation.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
It involves taking information and presenting it in a different format, like a poem, a song, or even a play.
It does sound a bit like a school assignment.
Right. But the book makes a good case for why it's actually a really effective learning tool.
How so?
It's all about making the information more engaging and memorable.
Oh, okay.
Like you're taking something that might seem dry and factual and turning it into something more fun and expressive.
So you have to really think about the key ideas and how they connect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it can help you understand the information on a deeper level.
Interesting.
Okay, last but not least, we have a strategy that sounds kind of intimidating but also intriguing.
Lay it on me.
It's called syntax surgery,
Syntax surgery.
and it involves breaking down complex sentences into their component parts.
So this is for those moments when you're staring at a sentence and thinking, what on earth does this even mean?
Exactly. It's about analyzing the structure of the sentence to unlock its meaning. So it's like dissecting a sentence under a microscope.
Kinda. It can be a bit tedious at first, but it gets easier with practice.
And the payoff is that you can actually understand those really complex sentences.
Exactly. It's like learning a new language, but the language is grammar.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from big questions to nonfiction signposts to these awesome fix-up strategies.
We have.
It's like we've been given this amazing toolkit for reading nonfiction.
I like that analogy.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners?
I think the main message is that nonfiction doesn't have to be boring or intimidating.
Right.
By using these tools and strategies, we can make it a more engaging and rewarding experience.
We can unlock the power of nonfiction to inform, engage, and even entertain us.
Exactly. And the more you use these tools, the better you'll get at reading and understanding complex information.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of nonfiction.
I'll see you in the next deep dive.